Thank you very much, Mr. Zolkin. Not to sound redundant, but in this field, there's really no such thing. So I made a couple of points while you were speaking of things that we're doing within our community that might be beneficial for some of the people here to know as well. The last thing you mentioned regarding programs, I think it's important for us to know there is a program based out of California from the Aleinu Foundation, which is run by Debbie Fox, which does a three-pronged approach to bringing educational materials into the school system, in which they do programs starting in pre-1A, both for students in schools, parents of the student body, as well as all of the educators as well as they also set up safety guidelines within the school of what the school must adhere to, such as no windows on any doors. Windows on every door. Okay, that just came up. Windows on every door, no window shades, cameras in any area that you cannot be seen, background checks, fingerprints of all staff, etc. So that's something that you guys should all know as well. Okay, with that, I would very much like to ask Mr. Norman Seigal, please come up and share some words with us.
Thank you. It is indeed an honor to be here today. And before I address my prepared remarks, I want to thank the survivors of sexual abuse, such as Mordecai Feinstein, for being here and speaking out. Second, I want to thank the families of sexual abuse victims, some of whom are in the audience today. I want to thank Ellie Fetterman, Ben Hirsch, and a few other advocates, some of which are in the audience today. All of these people have educated me, and I have the enormous respect for their courage, their strength, and principle. And I say to you all, we shall overcome. When I was growing up in the Borough Park section of Brooklyn in the 1950s, I often heard the words, quote, "We don't air our dirty laundry in the public." Apparently, we were not to admit any of our unpleasant secrets to the outside world. It was best to leave things as they are. Unfortunately, no community is free of the presence of sexual predators in its midst. During the last 2 decades, this problem was spotlighted within the Catholic Church. Other communities, including this one, should learn from that story. It is understandable that communities had a difficult time being introspective and admitting painful realities. It's much easier to continue to engage in self-denial. But self-denial continues the status quo in which victims are unprotected. This must change. First, New York's ultra-Orthodox Jewish community should change the way it treats allegations of sexual abuse. For too long, the community's response to a victim of sexual abuse has been to tell the victim to go talk with a rabbi and not to go to the secular authorities. Ultra-Orthodox Jews were told that it was wrong for a Jew to turn in a fellow Jew to secular authorities. This practice, called Misraya, too often assured that sexual predators would not be punished adequately and that the dirty secret would not negatively affect the wider community. It has resulted in victims not coming forward and not holding sexual abusers publicly accountable. Last summer, the Beis Din of Crown Heights stated, and I quote, "It has become increasingly aware of severe incidents of child abuse." It further stated, "The Beis Din condemns all forms of child abuse," and held that the practice of Misraya did, quote, "not apply in cases where there is evidence of abuse, and that one is forbidden to remain silent in such situations. One is forbidden to remain silent in such situations. Nevertheless, there is still widespread reluctance and resistance to the rabbi's holding. This holding should be supported overwhelmingly to assure that acts of sexual abuse will be minimized no longer and that sexual predators will be held accountable. Second, too often victims and their families and advocates who have the courage to come forward and report sexual abuse to secular authorities are ostracized, harassed, and even retaliated against. This practice should be addressed by secular authorities, prosecutors, rabbis, and community leaders who need to create effective mechanisms such as support groups, public fora like what we're doing today, and hotlines that encourage and protect victims and their families. Abuses should be prosecuted with, of course, due process of law. Those who attempt to intimidate victims and witnesses from testifying against the defendants should be prosecuted as well. Witness tampering and obstruction of justice is illegal and should be stopped. Is illegal and should be stopped. Third, the legal system, especially the prosecutors, must be more responsive to allegations of sexual abuse in the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community. Victims and their families must feel that if they seek assistance from the secular authorities, that justice indeed will be served. If the victims do not trust the prosecutor and do not work together with one another, justice will not likely be served. Finally, lawyers are needed to represent victims and their families during the criminal proceedings. The prosecutors, the district attorneys, they represent the people of the state of New York, not the individual victims. And too often, official decisions, such as plea bargaining or reducing the charges, are made without appropriate input from the victim and the victim's family. Moreover, victims and their families are not versed in the criminal process and are not knowledgeable about the intricacies of the system. They should have lawyers to inform, explain, and question the process to their satisfaction. Prosecutors should be open to the concept of victims' lawyers participating in the criminal process. Let me conclude by saying victims of sexual abuse need all the support they can gather, all the support. Frequently, their lives are unalterably changed after they are violated. If all segments of the community who are involved in and concerned about sexual abuse can discuss this serious and substantial problem openly, then maybe this dirty secret can be confronted and realistically ameliorated. Hopefully today, with all of you being here today, will be the first in many steps in a journey for justice. We have to go from here to Borough Park. We have to go from Borough Park to Williamsburg. And then we have to go up to Rockland County and Muncie. This is a Herculean task, and I hope that the people here today will join with us in this public education campaign to address the issue of sexual child abuse. I believe that the authorities, secular and religious, and the community, together we can provide real protection for sexual victims. I personally want to thank Charles Hines for being here today. Mr. Hines knows that I have a big mouth. He knows that I'm a troublemaker, and I'm proud to be a troublemaker. We need more troublemakers. And I know there's been a lot of criticism of Mr. Hines. But you know, I remember Mr. Hines in Howard Beach many, many years ago. He came in and he was terrific. He took a bad situation and not only did he confront it legally, but he also brought the city together. He didn't have to be here today. He doesn't have to hear my comments, other people's comments, pro and con, but he's here today. And I tell him here today publicly that I and other people in the city will work with you. We'll try to take the situation and make it better. Thank you.